Perfect. Okay. See, one more person still connecting to audio and a couple people in the waiting room. Thanks so much, everyone, for your patience. A lot going on this Tuesday for us here at CLAPA. So excited to have you all join us. I am going to take just a couple of minutes to do some quick introductions. I think I know most everyone on today. And then also just a few announcements before getting today's session started. So if you don't know me, I'm Abra Lyons-Warren. I'm the Director of Cross-Sector Initiatives here at CLAPA. That's how we pronounce that acronym. I think everyone today is from a CLAPA member housing authority, but if you are not, welcome. As a reminder, our main webinars as part of our Housing Is Working group are open to the broader public. So we do sometimes have non-housing authorities joining us. And then the quarterly roundtables, which are the discussion-based topics like the one we did last month on digital equity, and as well as our twice yearly member discussions are just for CLAPA members. So thank you so much again for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking more about digital equity. Before I hop into that, I do want to remind everyone that we have our annual cross-sector summit, the Housing Is Summit, coming up this year. It will be May 11th and 12th. Right now, we have registration open for the in-person. This is an in-person conference. And what we're trying out this year is, trying to accommodate everyone and feedback that we get. Thanks, Camille. You all can find a link with more information in the chat. But May 11th and 12th will be totally in person. And then the following week, we'll be doing like a mini virtual summit with all of the breakout sessions repeated. So at a later point closer to, we will open up the virtual registration option. Right now, just in person is open. But we hope you all can join us. I know some of you have already registered, which is great. And we hope that everyone can come. It's a really great event if you haven't been before. It brings together PHAs, sometimes nonprofit housing providers, folks from the education industry, from the health sector, community-based organizations, other national nonprofits, lots of government folks. We have a ton of HUD folks registered to come this year. Also from Department of Education, from HHS, people from the philanthropic sector, from think tanks, researchers. So really, really runs the gamut. And it's just a great time to network and talk with other folks doing cross-sector work. So I think with that, any other announcements, Camille, that I'm missing?
I think that was it. I know you're also going to highlight our digital equity initiative and our publications as part of this presentation.
Yeah, I was going to move into that. And I'm also wondering if you're able to grab just a link to the calendar for the working group as well, just to remind folks. So while Camille's very nicely getting those links for us, for those of you who haven't seen, I did want to highlight, just because it's our focus today, that we have a digital equity report that we put out a couple of months ago. And that's kind of a nice sort of overview of some of the policy landscape, highlight some of the work that some of you are doing. And then we separately produced a case study of the Housing Authority of the City of Austin, who will be presenting today about more of their work. So you can hold off on reading the case study until after today's presentation. Some of the information will be covered, some of it won't, but just another chance. And this is a great sort of plug. We don't have always formal things in the works. Sometimes we do on certain topics or for certain, geographic areas or different grants that we have. But we love highlighting all of your work. We love lifting up the fantastic innovative practices that many of you engage in. So if you ever have something that you think would just be so great for a case study or something similar, feel free to reach out and we'll see what we can do, because we are always happy to get that information out there. So I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and let Camille introduce herself, and Sandra, if you want to say hi, and then we'll move to today's webinar. Camille?
Hello, everyone. I'm Camille Noel Hunter. I know many of you on the call, but for those who don't, It's nice to meet you all. I am the Health Policy Manager at CLAFA, and I work on the Housing Is initiative with ABRA. So you will see me at the summit and on many other Housing Is events. Sandra?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra. I'm a grad student intern from the University of Chicago. I've been with CLAFA since September of last year. I'm just here learning a little bit about social admin, social work.
Thanks so much, Sandra. Yeah, some of you may have gotten summit emails from Sandra, so the name may look familiar. Great. Okay, well, with that, I'm so pleased to turn it over to Catherine Crago, who will introduce herself further. And she will be kicking off today's webinar and presenting on the fabulous work that's really been very longstanding in Austin, certainly one of the leaders among PHAs. So Catherine, take it away.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Camille and Sandra, thank you for spending time documenting, this kind of work. I really enjoyed working with you. And Abra, thank you for your leadership in promoting digital equity. I think you and I met maybe in 2015 when CLAFA was already working with the White House and HUD to make sure that housers could really see that dream of having, residents who are fully connected. And I just want to acknowledge too, I see a few other folks on the line that, represent organizations that were in San Antonio at the National Digital Inclusion Alliance last week. I see Opportunity Home and I see Seattle, and there may be others on the call who are CLAFA members who are really advancing this work in digital equity. So appreciate your leadership and I look forward to our discussion today. I'm Catherine Crago and I'm head of strategic initiatives at the Housing Authority of the City of Austin and Austin Pathways. And Austin Pathways is our nonprofit. I'm just sending a note that screen share is disabled. So Austin Pathways is the nonprofit subsidiary for resident services at the Housing Authority of the City of Austin. And at HACA, we're a large public housing authority, but we're on the smaller end of the large public housing authorities. And I'm trying screen share again. Okay, got it. Got it. I'm going to just share my screen here to give you a sense of our organization. And so we serve about 1,800 PBRA households. I'm sorry. Presentation mode, view, full screen. Is there a digital inclusion practitioner that can help me share this and
yeah, go back to the menu where you were.
Okay.
I think it's under slide. Try that one. Nope. Sorry, I'm used to using.
Oh, slideshow. Got it. Okay. So yeah, so Austin. So who I can't see all of you, but probably many of you have been to Austin. You've heard about Austin. Austin is a very north-south town. The city is really like this, so it's very kind of spread out. And you can see a little bit about our agency here. You can see that most of our residents, we serve about 20 to 25,000 year over year, about 5,000 residents and 1,800 subsidized households, PBRA households. And we serve about 14,000 residents that have somewhere between at any time 6,000 and 6,500 housing choice vouchers. Median family income's around 13,000 per year. And of course, we're quite, one of the first housing authorities in the United States, if not the first. And what's happening in Austin, the growth has been dramatic year over year. It's around 7-8%. And so what's happened is, while our residents are really spanning across from the north to the south of Austin and what can be called the crescent of poverty, and some folks call the crescent of opportunity, in those neighborhoods where those housing authorities were established in the late 30s and 40s and 50s, those neighborhoods have become gentrified. And so social services that should be right down the street or easy to get to are often having to move outside the the kind of the boundaries of that downtown area, which makes it harder for residents to get access to a lot of those services. And so on the left here, you can just see our residents by zip code really spread out, and then you can see our housing choice voucher holders by zip code. Our goal, of course, is to make sure that everybody can, that we alleviate poverty and that everyone can achieve their full potential. So in our digital equity work, we're always thinking about how we can do that. When residents don't have an internet connection, a device, and the digital literacy, the skills to know how to use those, they may not have the opportunity to do telehealth or work remotely, or complete online education or applications. Even meeting remotely with a service coordinator, they might not be able to do that. And as we've been learning recently in the past couple of years, they may not have timely information about emergencies and how to respond in emergencies. So our goal is to really close all those gaps and make sure that we can have very strong connectivity with residents so they can achieve those goals that they have for their families. When we started this in 2015, about 4% of residents had an internet connection at home. Back in those days, the questions on the digital capacity survey was, do you have an internet connection or don't you? And what we know now, the Census Pulse questions, they don't ask that question because they've learned that really those that have it, it's more about how frequently they have it. So, but back then, about 4% of residents said, yes, I have an internet connection. Today, thanks to some partnerships that we have, wonderful partnerships, especially Google Fiber, about 76% of our households have free high-speed internet in their homes. It's very high speed, above 300 meg symmetrical. Through partnerships, again, through the community, we've had 2,100 devices that have been donated to us, have been refurbished, and that residents have earned by completing 30 to 64 hours of education. You'll hear a little bit today about our digital ambassadors, and we've had over 120 digital ambassadors, and they've earned together either through volunteer service stipends or as contractors about $84,000. And this family is an example right here. They've actually left Chalmers courts, but they're a wonderful family, and they're just a great example of how our digital ambassadors have worked to help us. And I'm sharing this photo here because they actually have been instrumental in completing our digital capacity surveys with the city each year, forming teams, bilingual, English, Spanish, that can make sure that we really understand the state of digital equity at HACA. Those are the numbers. It's those folks on the right there. It's that human connection that drives technology adoption. And so I think, one of the areas that our case study really highlights are the kinds of people that are engaged and how they're engaged in achieving digital equity on our properties. And the very first thing, it's our digital ambassador program. What is a digital ambassador? Well, on the left, you have the original, the OG digital ambassador, Ernesto Resto, who started in 2015. He was a new resident at Meadowbrook, went into a classroom. His wife was taking computer class and was really just one of those natural social problem solvers. He was the person saying, well, that person is struggling, or this person doesn't because the court will violate the trip hazard clause on the lease. They don't want to get into trouble with that. Is there a way we can solve that? And kind of helping the teacher. He became our first classroom assistant, and then suddenly within 3 or 4 months we had 10, and about 2 years later, Mr. Felix here on the right, who is in college right now. He's doing a counseling degree. He actually ended up becoming a digital ambassador as well. And so for housers, there is a volunteer service stipend that enables housers to provide a stipend to residents who help out in the community, who help make the community, safer or better. And in 2015, most of those stipends were used for people that were distributing flyers or sweeping hallways or monitoring a door. And so our vision for that volunteer service stipend was to ensure that those volunteers could do things like helping their neighbors adopt the internet, helping them earn devices, and helping them learn and then teach a wide range of digital literacy skills. So that's basically what a digital ambassador is. Started out in the classroom, and then it's just kind of grown. As we evaluate how can digital equity support our agency goals and the goals residents have for themselves, then we have designed ambassador volunteer service stipend programs that support those goals that residents have. Now, this attitudes and skills, some people say, oh, well, you have to be really good at technology or you have to know how to teach. You just have to have empathy. I think this quote from Shannon Jones, who is a mobility ambassador, really says it. She described helping someone with a SNAP application. And she's like, they changed the interface on the SNAP application. I didn't know the new interface, but I knew people that I could ask. And I had completed many of those applications. I've walked in their shoes. So I know what they're trying to do. I know the terms folks will understand. And that's really what makes a great ambassador. They have that head, heart, and hands for helping their neighbors, and they are interested in learning. So what are those things that residents want to do? They want to lower their energy bills. They want to eliminate the transportation barrier. And they want to promote, health and wellness. They want healthy families. And so this is an example of a flyer, and we're happy to share these, any of these tools or templates with you all. Anyone who's interested, we have a Google Drive and we can share all these with you. But they're folks that really develop expertise in a technology area and an application of that technology that benefit residents' lives. Notice, and the ambassadors developed, our resident ambassadors developed this content. Notice it says advocate for change in your community. That's the very first bullet point that they clicked. They or checked. They didn't say learn about different technologies first. The thing that they're drawn in is I want to advocate for change so that my neighbors can have access to all of the digital tools that the rest of Austin has access to. So energy ambassadors, these are folks that learn, how to use tools to manage energy bills and lower energy bills. Now, there's a lot of non-digital stuff that residents do to lower their energy bills. In this particular case, this is at Shadow Bend Apartments. This is one of our energy ambassadors. He's not pictured here, but his name is AB, Armando Valadez. And he volunteered to be the pioneer in 2016 in using his internet service to and a Nest thermostat to lower his bills. Why is that sort of, something that folks, that puts us on an equal footing with Austinites that have connections? Well, the city of Austin has a demand response program. So when it's really, really hot, the city might be consuming so much electricity that they end up paying more for that electricity. So what they ask residents to do is enroll in demand response, and with a digital thermostat, when it gets really, really hot, maybe 1 or 2 degrees, they can change the temperature up or down a couple of degrees. And they reward consumers, Austin residents that enroll in that program. They provide an immediately $150 for enrolling, and then there are energy savings on utility bills each month. Well, if you don't have a very low cost internet consistent, free or low cost consistent internet connection, you can't enroll in that program that every other Austinite can enroll in. And that's a huge part of the market in managing the kilowatt hours cost that Austin Energy was missing. So by installing a digital thermostat, he was sort of the pioneer. Folks didn't trust it. They wanted something mechanical. that they can move with their hands, and the Nest does kind of work mechanically. And the unexpected benefit of this was that there were residents who were calling, who may have poor mobility, at times that were calling their caregivers to come over to my house to change the temperature. Those residents and their caregivers could learn to use a smartphone to control their digital thermostat. Of course, there are other things folks can do, check their bills online and that sort of thing. But that's an energy ambassador. So how can we reduce our energy bills using the tools of digital equity? Mobility ambassadors. These are folks that are learning a technology, whether it's an app or an online map or a Vision Zero pedestrian injury and solutions online that are navigating transportation. And this picture right here, this shows Michael at our lakeside property, which is right downtown. It's really in a great location. It's surrounded by e-bikes and scooters, and residents in housing have a $5 per year unlimited use of those tools. But they do need an app, and they do need to register for that app using an email address in order to get that voucher and apply it and use those tools to do things like go to the food bank and ride around the lake so that they can enjoy, the riches of Austin. So here you see Amy Ashley from Austin Energy with one of our team members, making sure that our helmet fits. This is an e-bike transit adventure. So there's a local bike organization, Bike Texas, that led this adventure where residents first got a briefing. They brought their smartphones, they downloaded the apps. Metro Bike troubleshooted any issues on those apps, added the vouchers, and then walked over to the e-bike station and learned how to check out an e-bike. We rode to the HEB grocery store, picked up some stuff and rode back. And these are the kinds of things that residents can do. When residents get engaged in this kind of thing, they also end up starting to advocate more for transportation in their communities. That's the application of digital tools to the problem of transportation. And finally, this is a picture of Myra Rubaklava, one of our community health workers that was actually a digital ambassador some years ago and decided to go into community health work. And she's standing here with a Google Fiber crew at our Gaston Place Apartments property, which is about 100 households, seniors and folks with disabilities. So what is Myra doing here, like in the construction phase of Google Fiber? Well, she's leading this crew. She is the trusted community health worker, and she is knocking those doors. And when folks are saying, I don't want it, or there's a reason that folks can't come in my unit, and this was mandatory, of course, because this is agency-wide, a property-wide equipment that's going in that belongs to HACA, the Google Fiber equipment. But Myra is there to lead the way. She was there to assure them that, if they didn't want it, they would be required to use it. But if they did want it, there were a number of things that they could do that were already a part of their health plans with her that they could do using their internet and a device and with digital literacy. And the kinds of things that residents said that they're doing are, oh, well, I'm using my Alexa, and that we're gifted with an Alexa, and now a resident who's blind, for example, can say, well, is it raining outside? There are folks using internet-enabled devices for medication adherence. There are folks that have increased their quality of life who want to go to church more, but they don't have transportation. So now they're able to find a service and as one woman told me, in every city in the United States, whatever time it is, if she wants to go to church, she can. And so these are the kinds of things that residents are doing. One of the really exciting projects that we have right now is with St. David's Foundation, and that really relies on folks like Myra, community health workers, writing a prescription for a digital inclusion intervention. So working with you, here's your health plan. Oh, and I'm going to write you a prescription for, free or low cost internet, and then make sure you get a device so that you can stick to your health plan. So we call these digital pulse ambassadors. And these again are residents. Sometimes they become contractors, and sometimes even, as Myra recently did, become after several years an employee of the housing authority. So we basically have 3 teams in our digital ambassador group. We have educators, our community engagers, the folks that are going out to notify residents of events, but also going out to partners, going to the Dropboxes of the world, city departments, technologists, and advocating for HACA's needs. And then we have our research and engineering team. And those are folks like the folks from Chalmers that you saw. They're going out there and ensuring the surveys are administered correctly. Or on the engineering team, they're actually trying to break the apps or figure out if you can use this app with a text message, that kind of thing. What you'll see in a lot of our communications is this word trust. Trust is one of the things that ambassadors talk about a lot. And in fact, the goal of digital equity in our logic model is to build trust in institutions. And so I could share more about that if there are any evaluators on the call that have any questions about that. So again, they're volunteer service stipend paid. They complete an online application. A single person is interviewed, and anyone that is in good standing and undergoes a background check, because there are things residents want to do that involve PII, personally identifying information, and even financial things. They are vetted before they're providing service, place-based service at properties. Our team leads are often independent contractors, so they're just that next step. So we are providing them with a request for quote. We're outlining their responsibilities, and they're sending us back, here would be my hourly rate for that. And that's just that next step up. In terms of training, there's ongoing training all the time and site visits to public agencies and the people making the technology, and participation in public meetings. This piece is really important. We want to make sure that the folks doing the work, boots on the ground, know the folks that are making the technology. We try to limit the duration of service because we really want, we sometimes call it an up or out. We want folks to definitely provide volunteer service in their communities, but also to use this as a platform to develop their skills and move into their their chosen field if that's what they'd like to do, whether it's through education or workforce development or other volunteer work out in the community, stipend paid. We try to avoid double dipping, so we don't want residents to be an energy ambassador and a mobility ambassador and a digital pulse ambassador. We try to do that as well. And for civic engagement, which is advocating for residents' needs, we'll go a year and much less service, because I think the HUD rules about 32 to 60 hours of service for that $200 a month stipend. And then for team leads, we plan a longer scope of circuit service, and we've paid between 18 and 30 per hour, depending on their experience. Funders, funders really appreciate this resident-centered approach. It does take a little bit more time, and we need funding for it. And so philanthropic organizations have funded this work, like St. David's as a foundation. We've had government grants, for example, Austin Transportation Department, government contracts, where we actually have a contract with an agency, companies, the corporate social responsibility division of a company. And in some cases, when a company, some of the new technology 2.0 companies don't really have CSR, corporate social responsibility efforts yet, we'll have a sponsor actually. They'll just provide a set amount to sponsor the organization, and we've done that as well. And I think those are all things that most housers can do. I'm sharing a little here and happy to go into this if there's interest on, the types of funding and the amount of funding that it takes to put up a digital ambassador team. And then I just want to share briefly before we kind of move into discussion and questions that there's a really this has been the engine for our work. I mean, we could not roll out and achieve adoption of the technologies that we do without our ambassadors. There's a lot of research on since the 30s when the federal government was trying to get farmers to change like the technology that they use to produce agriculture to feed America, on why people adopt new technologies and how they adopt them. And our ambassadors, they may not all be early adopters, but they're all sort of early adopters in terms of helping the communities. But we've got to get through those early majority and late majority and even laggard adopters. And those are sort of stages of adoption in order to secure that adoption that we need for residents to be able to really get the riches of that digital ecosystem, but also for us as an agency to be able to perform at a high level. Can we understand how adoption works so that residents can adopt work order management online, so that they could adopt, paying rent online, so that they can pull the information that they need online at any time that they are able to pull it, not have to delay getting information because their staff person isn't available when they are. So that's kind of the main engine is our digital ambassador program, our resident-led program. There's another piece though that's been really important to us and I hope could benefit other housers. In 2016, we established a work-study internship with Austin Community College. Austin Community College, it's a large community college, and the work-study internship is actually, it's defined by the Department of Education. It's different than a regular internship where the employer has the obligation to provide the training to the student. A work-study internship is basically an internship where Austin Community College is the employer and students take a class during the work-study internship, and that class satisfies their learning obligation. In this model, ACC, Austin Community College, is the employer, and HACA is the work site. So students are learning during their 3 hours per week of class and the homework they're doing for that class, and they're reporting to HACA for their work shifts. They work about 19 hours per week. ACC's minimum wage is $20 per hour. So they're paid $20 per hour, and they can complete semesters are between 9 during the summer and of 17 weeks during the fall and the spring. They can complete 2 consecutive semesters under this work-study internship. Most of these students are IT students. So most of them are changing careers, and many are Capital IDEA students. Capital IDEA is a workforce development organization that serves low-income folks. And what we find often, we've had over 157 interns come through this program. They've completed 200 semesters of digital inclusion IT internship. And what we end up finding most of the time is that there's 2 or 3 people out of, say, 8 or 10 that are actually HACA residents. And so what's happening when they're on site helping residents is not only are they scaling what they can do, they're bringing their expertise in. For example, this semester, there's a woman who is a credit union, has been a credit union teller for 16 years. She is co-leading the rollout of our work order management application. So, she doesn't have IT experience. She's getting that now, but she has been a teller at a credit union for 16 years. So we get these very capable folks, food service, managing restaurants, very capable in a deployment of computers that come and work on site with residents and really help them And what residents are getting is this near peer mentoring, because the person they're sitting next to is at Capital Idea and says, I've gone to Capital Idea, you can do it too. Here's what I learned. And it's been incredible. Of course, the regular benefits, interns are contractors. We've had 2 or 3 become employees of HACA. And whether they go to Visa or Facebook or Google, as their next step, they become advocates for us, for housers, and for digital equity in the community. They volunteer and they're just phenomenal. So this work-study internship, the value earned in terms of dollars paid to interns so far is right under 600,000. And that's been an incredible boon to us that, we didn't have $600,000 in cash to roll out this program. So I'm happy to share with you more about that. And I'm sure our partners at ACC would as well. And that is a little bit about our case study. Sandra, I hope I covered most of what you shared, and look forward to any questions.
Yeah, so it looks like we have Jennifer from HACA who has a question to kick things off. And for other folks, feel free to use the raise hand feature or drop a question in the chat. We look forward to answering all the questions. Jennifer?
Sorry, I was trying to get off mute. Thank you for that presentation. That was very, very helpful. I do have a question about your digital ambassadors. You mentioned that they, do a lot of outreach. They help the residents with their devices and those kinds of things, and they participate in some training. I know we have a digital ambassador program, and we are struggling to keep them engaged and find consistent opportunities for them. We've penetrated about, 90% of all of our public housing sites with broadband. So folks are powered up, they've passed out devices. And so now we're kind of in the next iteration of kind of keeping them engaged. Do you have any suggestions for other activities that they can maybe plug into?
Gosh, I think in terms of, so it sounds like, and congratulations, that's phenomenal at an organization the size of HACLA that you've connected 90%. I know you guys have been a Connect Home participant for a long time. And I'm wondering, so it sounds like they were focused on really basic kinds of connectivity on deploying those devices. Are there things that residents or properties in the community would like to be able to do to be sort of on par with, the advances of other communities around them? And I'll just give you an example, something that comes to mind from one of our residents at a Chalmers property. She was asked, there were a few folks doing a collaborative dissertation with some of our ambassadors. And so they were interviewing residents about education and access to digital tools and transportation. And they were talking about e-bikes and scooters and some of the new facilities that were around the property. And she said, I see these things coming up all around me. But are these things for me? And there was a sense, even among the digital ambassadors, that those e-bike stations were for the wealthy brand new apartment complexes, gentrifying neighborhood across the street, because that's all they ever saw is people come from across the street and pick up an e-bike and go. They really thought that was an amenity for the apartments across the street. I wonder if there are things, and even like civic engagement kinds of things that residents are hungering to be involved in, to advocate for, that could become your next sort of iteration of the program. What happens invariably is that the access to those things will require some new digital tool. For example, folks want Vision Zero services. Well, put your dot on the Vision Zero map that the city's hosting. Well, how do you do that? And so there will be that layer of digital inclusion that now you need to be able to mark something on a map. Well, okay, now you can do that for the 311 app. You don't like the curb cuts broken in your neighborhood, or this isn't getting picked up. Everybody's going to learn that. It could do with climate change. We're not getting services as quickly as other neighborhoods. Well, we're going to download that Ready, Southern California app, Ready Central Texas is what it's called in our neighborhood, and everyone's going to know how to use that. And the second something goes wrong, 50 people are going to put that request in through that app, and that's going to get their attention. So I don't know. Those are just some thoughts, Jennifer. And welcome your thoughts on that. Does that?
No, that's very helpful. I mean, you just got my brain waves going, because we are venturing out into the neighborhood initiatives, and we do have some iBuild money coming our way in the fall. So we're looking at EV rollouts in our neighborhoods, EV charging station rollouts in some of our neighborhoods. So I didn't think of that, but that could be another avenue that we can plug in our digital ambassadors, because you're right. They're going to have to check out those electric vehicles through an app, and they're going to need help with that.
And in terms of funding, and I don't know what it's like in LA, but a lot of there are ordinances that govern where people put or must put electric vehicles and other kinds of digitally powered transportation, even Ubers. It's anything you need with your phone. And so in Austin, we have an ordinance that says you can't just come downtown for South by Southwest. If you're downtown, you have to go east. And if you're north, you have to go south. So they're required by the city to put those everywhere. Well, here comes the funding, because those organizations are now, how do I recruit efficiently and cheaply? How do I get folks that are going to walk out their front door, or teenagers that are going to go in and check those EV charging stations, or download, whatever, or report back, take pictures of anything that's broken and report it back for $5 a picture. So I hope that, I'd be curious to hear about those. And with the EV equity, electric vehicle equity, making sure that, hey, you're in 30% of the neighborhoods that are very low income, you're hiring from a 1 mile radius of that EV station, and you're hiring teenagers during the summer, and they're coming to your office, to your factory, to see how you repair these things. They're getting that context. It's 4 hours of your time, maybe 10 if you the planning, but you're also going to pay us to do that, and you're going to pay kids or teenagers or adults to help you be effective. Yeah, so EV equity, that's a big thing, and we've been approached about that, but that's kind of the category that there might be some funding there.
Oh yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you. Thank you.
And I was just asking in the chat if other folks have had discussions about electrical vehicles for your housing authority. I don't know. You two are the ones I knew about it. So I'd actually love to hear if anyone else joining us today has been talking about this. And then I do know that some of you have digital ambassadors. So if folks wanted to kind of just drop that in the chat, just so other people are aware of who else has some version of that at your housing authority, or unmute yourself and let us know. So I think Sandra, I'm sorry, Sandra, Catherine, just looking at the wrong square. While folks are maybe thinking about other questions that they have, did you want to make a few comments about NTIA?
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, one of the really exciting things that happened a couple weeks ago is that our Myra and Gabby, those community health workers, and I saw Jennifer just put something in the chat. Maybe she can share more in a bit. And they went to the Net Inclusion Conference, and they met several members of the NTIA team. So NTIA is the organization at the Department of Commerce that is charged with allocating the $65 billion in funding for broadband and digital equity that sits in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And so that was very exciting. One of the things that I heard the Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo said in the fireside chat recently is that it's important for folks, affordable housers, to be in that discussion at the state level and the municipal level about where that broadband is and digital equity funding is going. So Texas, I think as of 2018, we were one of 6 states, or 2020, that didn't have a broadband development office. We do now. We have the BDO, the Texas Broadband Development Office. And as I've met some of the housers that over the past few months, I'm learning that there's a sort of, curiosity about this funding that's coming. And I just want to kind of encourage everybody to please, identify who it is municipally that's working with your state broadband development office, but reach out directly to the state broadband development office to ensure that housers are included in that funding that's coming. Housers are not required to be included, to my knowledge, in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. But some states may develop digital equity plans. They're in the process right now of developing those digital equity plans. Some states may require or strongly encourage recipients of that funding to include housers when they roll out this broadband money. Texas, we're getting, I think, somewhere between 3 and 4 billion. I know California and Florida and Illinois and New York will be getting some of this funding. So strongly encourage everybody to reach out to your broadband development office to see how your housing authority can be included in those grant funds. There's one other thing that you could do right away. The FCC has a map that for the first time shows at the address level who has access to broadband, who doesn't, and the quality of that broadband. And so if you have an opportunity, and I can drop a link in the chat here briefly, to go to that map and check it to see if it shows that your housing authority and your properties, if they have access to competitive, high speed, competitive meaning lower cost, high speed internet service at those properties, it is incumbent on us to verify the data that the FCC has received from internet service providers. I know that several states filed hundreds of thousands of corrections. I know Harris County filed almost 500,000 corrections to that map, saying that, hey, you're saying this location has access, it does not. So please, I encourage you to do that, because some of the states will be using the FCC's map to determine how that funding is allocated. Others may have more information about this if you are working with your broadband development office already or municipally to get some of those funding for broadband and digital equity. That's an important thing. I mean, they're also funding going to the community rooms, going out onto the properties and helping residents learn how to use these tools. So if maybe if folks are working, they could share if they've learned anything from doing that as well. And Abra, I know you're very focused on this, so thank you for your leadership again and making sure that housers can get that fair share of funding and that equitable funding for broadband.
Yeah, well, thank you. We're trying. As some of you, I'm just sort of looking over the list of who's on today. I know some of you were on our conversation last month, and we did talk briefly about this, just in terms of, sort of, there's these distinct needs between actual internet for residents, which, can be achieved now through the ACP, devices for residents, but then the infrastructure piece of either wiring your buildings or working with your voucher landlords to make sure that buildings are able to have internet is sort of this other piece. It sounded like from our conversation before that nobody has really made inroads with NTIA, but please, if anyone's on today who wants to correct me on that or say otherwise, please do. I see that Jennifer just said that HACA has been involved through the mayor's office, which is great. From our perspective, if there are specific things that we can be helpful with, let us know. We are working on putting together some more information with contact information for all the different state broadband directors' offices, further sort of analysis of funding opportunities that might be coming for all of you for the infrastructure side of it, as well as, of course, continuing to advocate for that to even be an option. But if there are specific ways that CLAFA can be helpful, please do let us know. We're a small but mighty team, and so we have to kind of pick and choose where to focus. And so if you all have specific places you want us to focus, we can try to accommodate that. Jennifer?
Yeah, I mean, I could just share with some of the advocacy efforts that we've participated in through the mayor's office. The mayor has organized what's called the Smart Cities campaign. It's a digital equity campaign of both housers, educators, public sector individuals, and nonprofits and private sector ISPs, internet service providers. And it's a roundtable discussion that happens once a month, and we talk about these things. And considering we know that there's some IBO money coming to us in the fall, one of the things that we started to pilot already with local state funds is partnering with the city's Department of Transportation on powering up the light poles for free Wi-Fi access, particularly targeted in our public housing communities and where our Section 8 communities are mainly concentrated, which for us is South LA. And so there's going to actually be a map distinguishing where these open Wi-Fi portals will be. It's also just to really facilitate the expansion of our bike pathways and expansion of our transportation networks with the EV installations. California as a whole, as a state, has already powered up our EV commercial fleet. So buses and other commercial fleet services are now EV, electric vehicles. And so, just really kind of just partnering with the city on these things. I don't know that we as a city have even made headway with NTIA, but really just talking about the infrastructure needs, right, of our buildings. We know that we have cinder block walls, satellites are really difficult to penetrate. This is a common theme across all PHAs. And so really helping the cities really understand like our specific needs as a public housing authority, and then figuring out other ways to power up the neighborhoods surrounding our public housing communities so that we can make a better case when this money does come online to say, hey, we've already made some initial investment with local funds to provide Wi-Fi access, and then present the case for the need specifically for our developments. At least that's the strategy.
Thank you. I see there's a nice conversation going on in the chat about electrical vehicle usage in Boston. So check that out. But did other folks have any questions or comments they wanted to add about infrastructure specifically? And are any of you currently working with or even had a conversation with your state's broadband director?
Hi, this is Allison from Jersey City Housing Authority. Our state, I think, was one of the last to form a state broadband office. It was just constituted a little less than a year ago, I think May or June of last year. And they started holding monthly stakeholder meetings. Last month was the first, the second will be next week. And JCHA has been sharing that information with our region for Connect Home so that other housing authorities in New Jersey are aware, and just encouraging everybody to join and be a part of those conversations. So far, they've just been giving sort of the broad overview that's been out there about how the BEAD funding is going to go out, but we're hoping to learn more about what we might be able to do or apply for or encourage partners to apply for in terms of addressing digital equity in our area.
Thanks for that, Allison. And like I said, we'll be adding some resources to our digital equity landing page on the CLAFA website, but to give you all a preview, I just dropped a link in the chat, which is a nice interactive map that you can click on to see who your broadband director is. There's a couple other contacts. Some states only have one person, some have a couple different folks listed, but that might be sort of a starting place for some of you. And we'll be sort of working on continuing to not talk to every single state in the District of Columbia. And I don't even know if Puerto Rico is on there, but we will be working to continue to get in contact with folks at Commerce so that we can sort of have those conversations from a national level for you all. So I do know that we are coming right up on time. I do want to just, again, direct attention, last looks at the chat if you hadn't had a chance to sort of see what folks were sharing there. Looks like we did have Columbus say that they're also working. And Mariana, was that through the FCC grants or a different award?
It was through the first one you mentioned. I do apologize. The FCC, yes.
Okay. Well,
It's
congratulations.
BEAD money, yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, yeah. And I know HACA also got an award. CLAPA will be putting out a congratulatory email soon. I've sent the information to our comm staff.
Great.
So that's great. Okay. Well,
Thank you.
just again, any sort of last questions or comments? We have recorded today's webinar. So if folks, we will get that up on the housingisn.org website in the coming week. And so if you all wanted to revisit any part of this conversation or share it with colleagues, that will be an option. Any final thoughts? Well, I agree, Phoebe, and thank you so much, Catherine. Really appreciate you sharing your expertise with us today, especially, you know, last minute your partner was not able to present with you. So thank you so much. We were so glad to have you talk more. And thanks to everyone for your great questions and comments. And if you are coming to the CLAPA spring meeting, we will see you next week in person. And if not, then I believe we have, do we have another webinar next month in April?
We have one in April. It's about connecting with your health department, and you will see more details coming out soon.
Great. And then hopefully we'll see you in May for the summit. Well, as always, be in touch if you have any further questions or comments for us. And thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.